What is up, everybody? Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. As always, no matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And today's show is for the people. I've seen you down in the comment section saying, Chase, I want some more draft talk. I've really enjoyed you talking about some of these prospects. Chase, put together a mock draft. We're going all in. Eagles 7-round mock draft coming your way. What I would do if I was Howie Roseman in making the selections for the Birds, all 7 rounds for the 2026 NFL Draft. Naturally, I want to segue to this. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're closing in on 145,000 subscribers right here on Eagles Now, the #1 Eagles channel right here on YouTube. And our draft coverage is really starting to ramp up. Going to be in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine at the end of the month, so you can expect coverage there. And then obviously in the lead up to the draft at the end of April. Also, do me a favor, hit that bell icon, turn on your notifications. Therefore, anytime I publish a video like this, anytime we do go live, you'll get that push notification. So the Eagles are on the clock first in the first round with the 23rd overall pick. It sucked to see Philadelphia lose in the wild card round to the Niners, but in losing to the Niners, they got a better draft pick. And with the 23rd overall selection, I'm going to go with Kadyn Proctor, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. We know that Howie Roseman in years prior has really liked to go big fish hunting from some of these major college football programs. He's really learned from the Jalen Reagor mistake. Don't get cute. Go after the best player. And in this mock draft simulation, Kadyn Proctor was by far the best player available on the board, in my opinion. And he also fulfills a really big need for the Eagles going into 2026 and beyond. I think the Eagles this offseason need to revamp their offensive line. And they need to get a Lane Johnson replacement, whether that's for 2026, if Lane Johnson were to retire, or after that. Because over the last few years, an offseason question mark has hovered around Lane Johnson. Is he going to retire? Is he going to call it a career? Is he going to return? We know how important the offensive line play is to this Eagles organization. We know that Howie Roseman loves to invest in the offensive line. And so my thought here with drafting Kadyn Proctor, he can be the future Lane Johnson replacement. But if Lane does come back this upcoming season, he can play guard, which is also a need for this Eagles team. If he doesn't play, that's fine. He can be that developmental player. And what better players to learn from than Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata? A potential issue here, though, is this. Proctor in college played left tackle. He didn't play right tackle. Remember when the Eagles drafted Andre Dillard and they asked him to move to the right side? And he wasn't willing to do it because he couldn't. He said it's pretty much like writing with your other hand. I kind of disagree with that, and Andre Dillard ended up being a bust. But it is harder than what you would think to move from left tackle to right tackle. It's just a different process for that player. But in scouting Kadyn Proctor, I do think that he has Pro Bowl, All-Pro potential. The size, he's so athletic, and it's freaky how he can move when he gets some momentum behind him at 6'7", 360. He is a junior. Don't have to worry about him being an older prospect here. He has immense talent. He can engulf defenders, whether he's run blocking or pass blocking. The size and movement is good. He does have some flaws to his game. I think the discipline and the technique need to be cleaned up a little bit. And sometimes he lacks rhythm as a player. And those are things that he can certainly work on as his NFL career progresses. This past year with the Crimson Tide, overall PFF grade of 85.2, pass blocking grade 81.9, run blocking grade 81.6, gave up 2 sacks and 2 penalties. So those are pretty good numbers there for Kadyn Proctor, and I think that he can only continue to get better. And with Howie Roseman, some people might look at this selection and say, Chase, you should have gone Quinyon Mitchell or a cornerback like Avion Terrell. I know that drafting offensive linemen early isn't sexy, but they're so important, especially in today's NFL. With my second round pick, 54th overall, I'm going to go with Dani Dennis-Sutton, the pass rusher out of Penn State. Going into the 2025 college season, a lot of people looked at him as a first-round pick for sure. He fell down draft boards a little bit because the production wasn't as great as what some people projected. And some people might think this is a little bit of a reach. I don't think so at all. I think with a player of this talent, of this ilk, going 54th overall, especially fulfilling a need for the Eagles, this also can be checked off as best player available. 6'5", 265, senior. I think that Dennis-Sutton can be one of the next great Penn State pass rushers. There's been a lot of good ones in recent memory. Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter. Dani can win with quickness and power. His hands are strong and violent. He can win with a variety of moves, so he mixes up his attack. And he graded out very well this past season as a run stopper and a pass rusher. You also think about the previous great Penn State pass rushers. Abdul Carter, Micah Parsons. They started off as linebackers, so they had that type of background because they're athletic freaks. Dennis-Sutton has that background as well. In 2025, 42 tackles, 12 TFLs. That is him being really good against the run right there. 8.5 sacks with 50 pressures and 3 forced fumbles. Highly disruptive as a player. In 2024, on the opposite side of Abdul Carter, 8.5 sacks, 45 pressures, and 2 forced fumbles. In 2023, was more of a rotational player, 3.5 sacks, but still 30 pressures there. And then as a freshman, 3.5 TFLs, 3 sacks, and 21 pressures. Consistent production, elite athleticism, and I think it plays at the next level. 42 tackles, 12 TFLs, 8.5 sacks, 50 pressures right there. I think that he could be a plug-and-play player for the Eagles here in 2026. I want an explosive player at the wide receiver position in this draft. So look no further than Zachariah Branch with the 68th overall pick for the Eagles here. 5'10", 180, a junior. A lot of you became familiar with Zachariah Branch when he was playing for Lincoln Riley at USC. This is a player who has game-breaking athleticism. He was an electrifying player at USC. I watched him 2 years ago in person in week 1 against LSU, and he was just making plays all over the yard, just the way that he moves. He's a very explosive player, and while some people thought that he was going to have greater numbers at Georgia, the numbers were really good, but not like to the next level. I thought he was solid with the Bulldogs. I think that he would be a really intriguing weapon at wide receiver 3 for the Eagles alongside Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. What's very weird is that Zachariah Branch is an explosive player as a returner, as a receiver. But his average depth of target throughout his career was only 5.2 yards. I think that's a play design and play calling problem as compared to it being a Zachariah Branch problem. Now, you point back to the production here. In 2025 for Georgia, he still was targeted 93 times. He still had 81 catches for 811 yards and 6 touchdowns. Only 2 drops, too. So 2 drops on 93 targets, has really good hands. And then you look at his career numbers, 2023, 31 catches for USC, 320 yards. 2024, 47 catches, 503 yards. Only had 3 touchdowns those first 2 years. And then in 2025, that was definitely his most productive season. So he never had a college year that the statistics really popped off the screen. But I think this is a classic case of his style of play just working at the NFL level. 98th overall selection, Bud Clark, safety out of TCU. Bud Clark is an absolute dog, and he's a straight-up ball hawk. And he has really climbed up draft boards after having a great Senior Bowl week in Mobile, Alabama. He was a 6-year college player at TCU. And in that bowl game where TCU was able to punch its ticket to the national championship game when they beat Michigan, he had that pick 6 against J.J. McCarthy. So he's been making big-time plays for a long time. An issue, he is a little bit smaller, 6'2", 190. Andrew Mukuba, a little bit smaller and a tweener there, who is also under 200 pounds. So you would have 2 safeties who are a little bit slighter, but 2 safeties who have a knack for making plays on the pill. 15 interceptions for Bud Clark in his TCU career, a roaming ball-hawking safety. I also like the positional versatility here. 313 snaps in the slot in 2025, 250 in the box, 160 snaps deep. If you let Reed Blankenship go, even if you bring Reed Blankenship back, I don't think Sidney Brown is a good safety at the NFL level. I think Bud Clark is going to be a good player. So with that, I pop up today's poll question. What are your biggest Eagles draft needs? Share your thoughts with me down in the comment section right now. I think offensive line, cornerback, wide receiver, tight end. Those are some of my biggest, and of course, pass rusher, because that's a need for any team, any given offseason. Let's first get to our sponsor before we continue to push forward with my mock draft 1.0. Today's Philadelphia Eagles Now made possible thanks to our friends at PrizePicks. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks and get $50 instantly on lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and you play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. You can pick from all your favorite sports, anything from basketball, baseball, football, hockey, UFC, soccer, college basketball, tennis, golf, esports, and more. And the new feature alert, PrizePicks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out of those winnings before the game even finishes. 3-pick power play. Looking ahead to the 2026 NFL season. I love this. Myles Garrett, more than 13.75 sacks. Saquon Barkley, more than 1,225.5 rushing yards. Can the Sean Mannion offense bring him alive once again? And then Justin Jefferson, where will he be playing in 2026? Minnesota or somebody else? More than 7.5 receiving touchdowns. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, we move forward with my mock draft 1.0. Julian Neal, perimeter corner out of Arkansas, headed to the Birds here at 122 overall. Allowed a completion rate when targeted this past year for Arkansas of 56.3. Gave up 3 touchdowns in coverage, 346 yards. That's not always on the corner, of course. That can be with what is happening in front of him on the defensive side of the ball. And that Arkansas defense was putrid this past season. What I love here, the ball skills, the pass breakups, 12 PBUs, 2 interceptions, and a quarterback rating allowed when targeted of 82.5. There was a step up in competition for Julian Neal this past year because he transferred to Arkansas from Fresno State, and he upped his game and he played better playing in the SEC. He played 687 snaps on the outside at the cornerback position for Arkansas. So this is an outside corner who could go opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. You keep Cooper DeJean in the slot, and you can move on from Adoree Jackson. Dae'Quan Wright is a tight end out of Ole Miss who I thought popped in a couple of games during that college football playoff run for Ole Miss. Big body player who moves well for his size. Going to the Eagles there at 136 overall. You could bring back Dallas Goedert and draft Dae'Quan Wright, who's also got some potential as a blocker as well. Jaeden Roberts, offensive guard out of Alabama. We go back to the Bama offensive line well with pick number 151. And then how about a developmental backup quarterback for the Eagles quarterback factory? Taylen Green out of Arkansas. He's tall, he's lengthy, he's very athletic. Why not use a 5th-round pick, 179 overall, to bring in a player who might be able to compete for the QB3 spot this upcoming season? Last 4 years, his numbers passing. Last 2 at Arkansas, previous 2 at Boise State. Like, that's still a high level of football. The accuracy needs to get better. Him being turnover prone is obviously a concern. I think this would be a long-term play in developing him. But the athleticism is certainly there. The arm strength is certainly there. He moves very well. And I like the size, too. Completed just under 61% of his passes. Again, needs to refine the mechanics. 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns, 11 picks. The year before that at Arkansas, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks, threw for more than 3,100 yards. You definitely look at the interception numbers there, and you might press pause. 6, 9, 9, and 11. That is definitely an issue, but with quality coaching, you're hoping that a player drafted in the 5th round might be able to become something. But if you want to go dual threat here, Taylen Green is a dual threat quarterback. He ran for 779 yards in 2025 for the Razorbacks, 5.5 yards per tote, 8 rushing touchdowns. The year before that with Arkansas, 600 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. And then in the previous 2 years with Boise State, 19 rushing touchdowns. He can get it done throwing it and running it, that is for sure. So that does it for my first Philadelphia Eagles mock draft. 8 picks for the Eagles, all within the first 5 rounds. A, B, C, D, or F. Grade it for me. I want your feedback because we always want to get better.